How are we already walking the way of the cross this week? When I entered seminary, I decided that I ought to have a good cross as a necklace. I like necklaces. I wear them almost every day when I'm not wearing a collar. I fiddle with them when I'm trying to pay attention. I hold them close when I need strength. And I decided that if I was giving my life to God, if I was following this particular calling, one I still wasn't sure I really truly wanted, that I needed a symbol, something to hold on to help me remember who and whose I was. We had lots of crosses and crucifixes in my home, pictures, icons, even ones that glowed in the dark, and a giant rosary on the wall with a huge cross. But not one that seemed to connect my soul to something greater, not one that felt like mine, that felt like a piece of Jesus that I could hold on to on my journey. And so I started to look. Did I want a cross that was beautiful? Yes, but not too beautiful, because as we just heard, the cross is deeper than that. It's a symbol of death and of God taking pain and suffering and flipping it on its head. Did I want a cross that was big? No, not really, but not small either. Should it be ornate? No, I decided, but I didn't want one that was simply plain. And I looked, and I looked, and none of them ever felt right to me. None of them spoke to me of the life and the journey of faith that I was on. None of them seemed to fit as my cross, as the symbol that I was looking for, a symbol that points to the greater reality of God, of Jesus, of the walk, of the way of the cross in my life. None of them felt like I could hold on to it, fiddle with it when I needed to pay attention, and hold on when I needed strength. As we prepare to walk the way of the cross this week, this Holy Week, what crosses do you have in your life, in your homes, on your walls? These symbols that are both things we can hold on to, but also point us to the reality of that deep love of Jesus, that remind us of who and whose we are. Today we have two gospels rooted in the cross, two supposed stories of good news, except only one actually feels like good news. It's like we move through Holy Week in one leap, as though the lectionary writers were scared, frightened that we might miss Holy Week, that we might skip and go from the joy of Palms to Easter and the joy of resurrection and miss the hard bits in between. And yet, here we are. And yet, today is an invitation to begin that journey toward the cross. A cross that begins its life as a symbol of pain and hurt and degradation and fear, but becomes precisely in the midst of that a symbol of God. God in the midst of pain, degradation, and fear. God right in the midst of life. And today we need that cross. We need our crosses. We need our crosses as we begin this Holy Week, and as we begin this Holy Week after this random attack, not in a place far, far away, but in one close by, close to our hearts. Today we need our crosses as we mourn. But we need our crosses as something more than a symbol of death. We need our cross as a symbol of transformation and life. And perhaps that's why today we move from palms to crosses. The Reverend Dr. Michael Battle puts it this way: power and force never achieve the ultimate goal of transformation. Transformation occurs only through those who are capable of receiving God's surprises. The cross is God's surprise. And this week, as we're again reminded of the fragility of life, we are invited to walk with Jesus, to take our place with the disciples in our journey to the cross, to say goodbye, to eat one last meal, to pray and stay awake, to weep at the foot of the cross, to wait, to mourn, and wait for God's surprise to come. And we can try and skip ahead. We can try and miss the journey, but life happens anyway. Life happens. And transformation in our lives, resilience when life happens, only comes from walking through the pain, from taking the journey of this week. I've found my cross. I found my cross about 2 years after I started looking for it, when I'd really stopped looking for it. I was in the midst of my life, my journey, my day, going from school to church, to back again, to home, to work. And there it was. It was neither too big nor too small, neither too plain nor too ornate. It had a blue stone right in the middle, right at the heart. I could hold it. I could fiddle with it. And each time I touched it, each time I held it, each time I moved it back and forth on its chain, I was reminded who and whose I was, whose and whose I am. And it was always right there. This week, we walk to the cross. This week, we are invited on this journey. We're invited to have our hearts broken open, to wait, open to God's surprises. Because it's not the end, but just a beginning. This week, we're invited to take the walk from palms to passion, to new life. This week, we walk the way of the cross. Amen.